Well, Ontario is moving to the next step of reopening 4 days earlier, and then shortly after that, getting rid of the proof of vaccination requirement next month.
For reaction to this, we're joined live now by Dr. Peter Jüni, the scientific director for Ontario's COVID-19 Science Advisory Table. Happy Monday to you, Dr. Jüni. I'd like to get your take on what you think of this earlier reopening. Do you think that this decision was based on science or politics?
Well, it's certainly supported by data. When we look at test positivity and our signal of RNA, viral RNA in the wastewater, we're looking good and we continue to look good. Meaning we probably will continue to go down for a little bit longer with our hospital occupancy and ICU occupancy. That's excellent news. And also meaning that we probably in most places of the province have accumulated quite a bit of immunity that will help us short term and keep things under control. But it could be variable in the province. We're currently looking into this based on wastewater data.
Yeah, Dr. Jüni, it's interesting because, you know, a couple of weeks ago, we were talking a lot about flying blind as testing, you know, kind of went down, the lack of PCR tests and you know, and the way our case numbers are going. We couldn't really get a good sense. So now, as you mentioned, kind of relying on wastewater to get the indications. Are you comfortable doing this without the testing capacity that we have here, or are you suggesting that, as you just mentioned, sort of the vaccinations and sort of immunity that we've developed makes you more comfortable at this stage?
What makes me really comfortable is how consistent we saw how the things improved in wastewater, and this was consistent with all the other signals we had. And of course, what we just need to be aware of, you know, the extent of control we're having now depends on various factors. No, it will be whether we just now say, hooray, everything is honky-dory, and we basically go back to normal. This won't work that way. We shouldn't do that. We should do it slow, stepwisely. More responsibility is with us. Then we need to continue to monitor what's happening. And those who haven't had an infection with Omicron yet, you know, it's still probably 60 to 70% of the population who haven't had an infection with Omicron and haven't had their third dose shall get their third dose. And then we'll see how it goes. We just need to do step by step. But right now, we're certainly in a much better position than many places.
Okay, you certainly do sound hopeful, Dr. Jüni. What do you think about the vaccine certificates being lifted by March 1st? I mean, vaccination rates are still lagging in certain age groups. The 5 to 11 group, that group being fully vaxxed, it's only 23.5%. If we see a new variant, hopefully not more serious than Omicron, won't children in that age group be a potential carrier for more disease or more COVID?
Well, we need to be aware of, you know, the situation we're in is we move into a space relatively soon where most of us will have experienced some exposition with the virus, including our children. So it's either through vaccination, through infection, or a combination of the two. And this also holds for our children. Right now, we certainly can do much more homework and get more of younger children vaccinated. It seems that parents are relatively reluctant there, and we can continue to work on the messaging and continue to go the last mile. This will be important. But you see, the problem with the vaccine certificates is that if we would stick to a 2-dose certificate, it doesn't make much of a difference regarding transmission. So either we make it a 3-dose certificate, which is very challenging because we have a lot of people who just have had Omicron, can't document it well, and they wouldn't like to get their third dose right now. Or we say, look, you know, it's now inconsistent, you know, it's different than a few months ago. We don't want to make this a tokenism, and therefore we lift it. So I think it's right to do that in March and, you know, just deal with it for what it is. It's a tool, and we might need it in the future again in autumn, depending on the situation. But right now, if we don't want to do a 3-dose certificate, we'd rather lift it because otherwise we're inconsistent with science.
Speaking of consistency, do you worry at all, Dr. Jüni, about the messaging it sends that the vaccine certificate is going to be gone? And while they're still encouraging people to get vaccinated, like yourself and other members of the science table and other health professionals and political leaders, in fact, but they're still saying, you know, in a couple of weeks' time, you won't need to prove that you've been vaccinated.
Yeah, I mean, we have discussion actually just in one of the, you know, the chats that I've had before I just came here. We had exactly this discussion, and of course that's a challenge. The point really is we have overwhelming evidence that vaccines work, and right now, you know, that 3 doses are clearly better than 2 doses, and we just need to get this message across. But the other part is also, if you have a tool that is not as efficient anymore because of the changing nature of the virus, as is the case for a 2-dose certificate, do you really want to keep it? It doesn't add to your credibility. And remember, we might need to use the tool again in the future. So rather short-term limited, we lift it when we see it's not that efficient anymore, but we're ready to keep it in the back of our pockets if we need it again in the future.
Okay, appreciate the analysis again. Dr. Peter Jüni joining us live on TV24 Live at noon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.